So there you have it, a look at our small schools, our 2A, our 1A, and our TAPPS school, as well as some of the independents, some of the guys who aren't worried about going to the playoffs because they can't. They're not in a district. They're not basically UIL recognized, but they have programs that are playing varsity games this year, and some of those include Brownsville Veterans, PSJA, Southwest, Lucera, and Monte Alto for a couple of them. MMA also not in a district. They're not in TAPPS, haven't been. Last year was their first season out of TAPPS. But let's start on the 2A level, Brendan, and let's start with you. Santa Rosa, how good do they look, and what can they accomplish?
I think Aaron Ramirez is quite a weapon that they have there. They're going to line him up in a bunch of different spots. He's bigger than any lineman on the field at that level most of the time, and I think they'll go as far as he can take them, but he's the type of receiver where you can throw it up 5 feet above the D-back and he's going to go get it. So I like how they look based on just him.
How about you, Alex?
I like them. I remember back, I did the Lavia Santa Rosa game last year, the Sugar Bowl, and Ramirez was just so much fun to watch, and I think they've got a shot to continue what they did last year. They knocked off Lavia in that game. It's 2A versus the 1A, but usually those schools are pretty evenly matched, and I think they have a pretty good shot. I think they'll make the playoffs.
I think they have a definite shot of going deep in these playoffs. Like you said, Aaron Ramirez, no truth to the rumor that he'll actually be selling hot dogs at halftime, but they use him at just about every other position out there. Kick returner as well, besides, and he's a fantastic defensive back, and he's not the only one out there. I mean, they've got some other great kids out there. Villanueva, of course, is going to be a great running back for Santa Rosa. I see Santa Rosa doing some fantastic things coming up. They've got a big offensive line as well. And from 2A, let's go to 1A, and let's talk about Lavia, guys. I mean, this was a team that people had big plans for last year, started 6-1 and then lost all 3 of their district games. A lot of that was not their fault, not the team's fault. They had some grade problems. They had some injury problems. They lost some big key pieces on that team. Now they're definitely motivated to go back and not only make the playoffs, but go deep, Al.
Yeah, they certainly are motivated, and I think last year was a little bit of a wake-up call because there was a lot of high expectations. They were coming off that national championship at the 7-on-7 tournament, and, Gene Goddard does a fantastic job with this program because, again, at the 1A level, you really don't know what you're going to get year in and year out in terms of athletes, and for them to be as successful as they are year in and year out, at least putting wins up on the tally sheet, has got to be commended.
Of course, A.J. Garza coming off a season where he set the Valley record for most yards passing in a year, 3,222 of it, 22 touchdowns. I mean, all of those main guys are back. Richard Bantu, his main target, running back, they're all back. Noah Castillo, the all-state defensive back, he's back. Lavia should be primed and ready for a deep run in the 1A playoffs, I think. Guys, on the independent level, it's very interesting. Brownsville Veterans, still a year away from being in a district, still a year away from being able to make the playoffs, and yet Coach Mark Guest is down there, and he's leading the Chargers into basically a varsity schedule. They're playing Lavia, they're playing Port Isabel, they're playing Corpus Christi Ray, they're playing Corpus Christi Miller, PSJ Southwest with Jesus Reyes, they're playing some varsity squads. Even little teams like Lucera, Monte Alto, they've got like MMA on their list. MMA in Santa Maria still not back in UIL yet. Of course, MMA out of TAPPS. Santa Maria still looking to get more kids so that they can get back in. But all these independent teams, it's quite interesting watching them schedule all these varsity games against one another. It's not just junior varsity anymore, Alex.
I mean, man, is it tough to fill out the schedule sometimes. The one that's interesting to me, and I've said this ever since they said they were going to have a high school, is Monte Alto, because you're talking about kids in the Delta area that would have been going to La Máquina Maria and Ed Chelsa. And where does that change the enrollment in Ed Chelsa? Maybe not this year, but in a couple of years, in that proud tradition of Ed Chelsa, does one of the arms get cut off as a result of Monte Alto ISD?
The thing with those teams that I like the purity of how they're playing. I mean, they're not in a district, there's no standings, but to them it's real, and those games count. And they might not receive a lot of press or highlights or airtime, but it's also fun for them to start traditions. I mean, you have PSJA Southwest is coming into a pretty good football school system there. And for them to be able to kind of stamp their own traditions and start things under a new program, it's exciting.
Right now, PSJ Southwest is a is a 3A. Brownsville Veterans is a 4A, but we'll see if both of them might get bumped up once Rio Grande cuts it out.
PSGA Southwest, they're cutting up far in San Juan again. I mean, that's tough for PSG High, PSG North, and PSG Memorial to swallow, because there's a little piece of the pie they're not getting anymore, and that already happened when Valley View ISD started up again. So there's still a lot of interesting things to kind of play out that are trends to watch as the years to come.
I think it's a good move to schedule varsity teams on their schedule, because it's how the kids will learn what it takes. I mean, you can play all the JV and freshman teams that you want, but until you're playing those teams that have varsity programs, that have standings to play for, that have district titles to play for, that's when the kids on the other side will see this is the commitment we have, this is the tradition that they've established, and then they want it for themselves. So even though they might have a rough go of it in terms of how the game goes, it'll be invaluable in the long run.